So, as you may or may not be aware, Sekiro No Defeat saw its world premiere at Fantasia Film Festival in Montreal, Canada today, or today as of the time of writing. As I've been covering many of the other premieres at this film festival, I decided to give this one a shot. Rather, it was the star. Anime adaptation of the hit game Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, which won Game of the Year in 2019, it was hyped to shit by every anime outlet and their proverbial mothers a month in advance. Despite selling tickets like hotcakes, I got a ticket somehow, and good lord. As a fan of this game, I genuinely wish I didn't see that. I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it. It just wasn't a good adaptation. Like, at all. And warning before I start, I will be spoiling the entire thing. Now, before you type in the comments that I'm simply doom posting, calling it a bad adaptation because, oh, the director didn't add this one pixel of grass in my favorite scene, let me say why. This adaptation fast-forwards over a majority of the game and its story in order to deliver a heavily condensed experience of the game. And when I say a majority, I mean a majority. For a game heavily centered around boss fights, with 17 distinct bosses in the game including the inner versions, would you like to know how many boss fights are shown in the adaptation? I'll give you a second, just guess. 4. Only 4. Genichiro at the Field of Reeds at the beginning, then Gyobu Oniwa, Genichiro again at the castle, and I'm not going to count Genichiro 3 times, because he's here 3 times, then Owl, then Genichiro again, and Ishin. That's it. 4 distinct bosses in 5 different boss fights. Genichiro at the castle takes up by far the most time of any of them, with 15 minutes or so, and Gyobu Oniwa takes up not even 2. Which brings us to another issue, the pacing. It's not just an issue with the actual content either, this adaptation also just has god-awful pacing. I'm not a negative Nancy, but like, holy shit, I've seen short films with better pacing at this festival, let alone anywhere else in my life. Shout out to Echo by Asuka Dokai once again for proving my point. Split into 3 acts, each named The Code, Kuro's Wish, and War, we start at the Field of Reeds at the beginning of Act 1. It takes not even 15 minutes from the beginning to get back to fighting Genichiro again, and by the time that fight is over after 10 minutes, and after a brief conversation with Ishin, Act 1 is over. Act 2, the longest of all 3, is spent entirely around a village that doesn't even appear in-game, attempting to build a connection between Kuro and the audience through Sekiro. However, there simply isn't enough time to do so, as by the time something gets going after a short festival sequence, Owl arrives from nowhere. He kidnaps Kuro and fights Sekiro with a stolen Mortal Blade, which Sekiro obtained in a 5-minute montage at Mount Seppo, where he's just given it. The floating screen monkey boss fight is fucking missing too, for Christ's sake. How can you make an adaptation of Sekiro without the hardest boss fight in the game? Owl just dies right there, after which a brief scene where Genichiro cuts off Ishin's head to give to the Interior Ministry plays, leading to Act 3, War. The Interior Ministry invades, Sekiro, Kuro, and Emma try to leave, the sculptor is just killed, and Hanbei is still alive for some reason. By the way, side note, throughout the entire film, and this is a film for some reason that I'll get to in a second, Hanbei has comparable screen time to fucking Ishin of all people. Like, what? He's not even a main character. Anyways, the Genichiro Ishin boss fight happens, after which you would expect that the game just ends, right? Or the adaptation just ends, right? Nope! It actually continues on for another 15 minutes, ending with the Immortal Severance ending where, it's actually the Purification ending, I was wrong, and I might be wrong here, it's implied that Kuro kills Sekiro. Like, what? And then after a short scene with Emma, it just cuts to black, and the credits roll. Not only is the entire pacing different, it's not even the same. Different events happen at different times, and whole new story beats happen where there wasn't any in the first place. What was the point of that village sequence? Why did Kuro and Sekiro walk to fucking Narnia of all places just to die if he was gonna return to Ashina anyways? I went into this thinking that it would simply be an adaptation of the game, with the first 3 episodes of a 12-episode series being the ones shown, but I was so wrong. It ended up being the entire thing, which was extremely disappointing, but to be honest, was my own fault. The adaptation heavily condenses the game to a point where it actively hurts it. Again, since I read that it was announced as a TV anime, I expected at least a minimum 12 episodes, and that the plot would be sufficiently lengthy enough to take up such a time frame. Upon rewatching the trailers, it seems that there's even scenes in the trailers that are supposed to be in the movie that completely aren't. Either I watched a shortened version of the entire film that's supposed to be shown, either I watched one part of 3, which I'm not understanding, or there are parts of this movie that have been cut out that have left it in an inferior state that it should be. And I don't know which is which. I really don't know. If this is one part of 3, then I understand. However, if it was one part of 3, why did it play through the entire game? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. If this was one part of 3, it would have ended at a certain point. It would not have ended at the end of the game with Sekiro dying in the Immortal Severance ending. It would not have. There is no reason for there to be missing anything. With the heavy condensation and horrible pacing, the only redeeming aspect left is the rather subpar animation. While I can admit it was smooth at times, overall, the fight scenes and the boss fights themselves, the principal focus of the game's appeal, are uninteresting. The second Genichiro fight has little in the way of actual flair, with little to no fast movement like in the game, with them at points literally walking at each other. It seems the animation tried to make the game more realistic in its portrayal of sword-to-sword combat, with a heavy emphasis on footwork, but it just ends up being slow. There are some other well-done scenes, like the Ishin boss fight at the end, where they do end up throwing his signature slashes into the mix, but as a whole, there simply was not enough good animation where it counted to call the entire thing well done. Put simply, the animation and writing are so lackluster, there is little shine to be seen at all. It's not really special at all, it's just a bad adaptation. As a fan of the game, and as someone who could probably do the Genichiro boss fight blindfolded at this point, I struggle to find a reason to recommend you to watch this besides more Sekiro. It does nothing special that the game itself cannot do, and it adds nothing special in the way of lore, of character progression, or emotional impact. Hell, I think the only new thing added in this is one line where Emma states that Kuro's dream is to open up a tea parlor. There simply has to be a reason as to why a Sekiro adaptation, which is, mind you, one of FromSoft's most popular games, up there with Dark Souls and Elden Ring, that is backed by Kadokawa, one of Japan's biggest media conglomerates, turned out this way. It cannot possibly be chalked up to a lack of budget. This thing would have had money coming out of its ass from both sides. Something happened with either the directorial aspect or the studio itself, and I cannot possibly fathom which to ascribe blame to. However, that's not for this video. I don't care about the blame game. All in all, it's just not a good adaptation, with it being mediocre at best with all things included. It sucks, because I was really looking forward to this. The trailer made it look good, and by all means, it should have, but a lot of the creative decisions in this adaptation just piss me off. I don't really know what else to say, really. Watch it when it comes out. Decide for yourself whether I'm just being dramatic or not. All I can say is right now, just don't get your hopes high. Anyways, that's it. Thanks for watching. See you soon.